Welcome to today's Explainer. I am honestly so excited to dive into this one with you. Today, we're unpacking Anita Desai's incredibly powerful short story, A Devoted Son. We're going to break down this deeply complex narrative about family, expectation, and obligation, and we'll be using a really simple storytelling technique to track how the dynamics between a father and his son shift over time. By the end of this, you're going to see exactly how a story that starts with absolute, pure triumph slowly twists into this really tense psychological battleground. So let's kick things off with a question that sets the stakes for the entire story. What would you sacrifice for the good of your parents? I mean, this is the core theme Desai is wrestling with here. Where exactly does filial devotion end, and where does personal sacrifice, or, as we'll see, maybe even tyranny, begin? Keep that in the back of your mind as we watch our protagonist's journey completely unfold. Section 1. The Pride of the Family. Picture this. Our story kicks off in a middle-class Indian village with a moment of just absolute golden triumph for a young man named Rakesh. He's barefoot in his pajamas, scanning the morning paper, and he finds out he scored first in the entire country on his medical exams. Naturally, bedlam breaks loose, right? The family is whooping and dancing, but notice what he does next. Right in the middle of this glorious moment, Rakesh anchors his success by immediately walking over to his father, Varma, bowing down and touching his feet. He doesn't celebrate himself first, he completely humbles himself before his dad. Now, you might expect a proud dad to brag about those insane test scores, right? But look at how Varma actually reacts. As visitors are streaming in with garlands and gifts to praise this prodigy, Varma doesn't boast about the grades. He boasts about this specific gesture of submission, saying, "He bowed down and touched my feet." The neighbors are just shaking their heads in wonder at such perfect behavior. So right out of the gate, we have our baseline. Rakesh is set up as the ultimate devoted son, and Varma's pride is entirely wrapped up in his son's respect. Section 2, A Doctor Returns Home. Let's look at how Rakesh's devotion builds his legendary status through the sweeping ascent to greatness. Talk about a meteoric rise. He goes to medical college, writes a brilliant thesis, and actually wins a scholarship to America, which his father proudly insists on calling the USA to all the neighbors. Rakesh wins praise from his American colleagues, but defying pretty much everyone's expectations, he returns home. He comes right back to his shabby colony. He even agrees to marry a plump, uneducated, but good-natured village girl his mother chose, instead of bringing home a foreign wife. He rises to hospital director, opens his own private clinic, and becomes the richest doctor in town, driving his parents around in a sky-blue ambassador car. He is the absolute picture of perfect, unyielding devotion. Section 3, The Father's Decline. But you know how it goes. Things rarely stay perfect forever. As the years pass, the glory begins to fade, and this really dark cloud settles over the family dynamic. It's a strange truth that talent, if displayed for too long, kind of ceases to dazzle. Old Varma's life takes a really sharp downturn. He retires after 40 years at a kerosene depot. Then, tragically, his wife passes away. Without his work and his wife, Varma just completely goes to pieces. He actually starts faking mysterious diseases, stretching out totally still on his bed just to make the family panic, only to suddenly sit up and spit Beetlejuice to mock them. I mean, he even fakes losing his pulse during a birthday party. He becomes entirely dependent, forcing Rakesh to step in as his primary caregiver. Section 4. Medicine replaces the food. Okay, so this brings us to the real turning point in our explainer. Rakesh, the brilliant doctor, decides to medically manage his father's life. He starts treating his dad like a patient rather than a parent, and systematically crosses off every single delicacy Varma loves. Suji halwa, gone. Fried fish, banned. Sweets bought secretly from the bazaar by his grandkids, absolutely forbidden. Rakesh actually storms in shouting about cholera and typhoid. Butter and oil are out of the question. Rakesh leaves his elderly father with literally nothing but dry bread and boiled lentils. And Rakesh just hits him with this perfectly clinical, almost patronizing justification. "Now, Papa, we must be careful. We can't risk another illness, you know." On paper, sure, it sounds reasonable. But he's completely ignoring his father's emotional cravings. Food was the old man's absolute last remaining pleasure in life, especially after losing his wife, who was a really generous cook. In a tragic twist, this is what the diet actually becomes. Powders and pills completely replace natural foods. Rakesh manages his father's bowel movements, blood pressure, arthritis, and heart with this relentless schedule of medication. The vitamins and tonics keep Varma alive, sure, but the text gives us this haunting image. It was keeping him alive long after he ceased wishing to be. It was as if Varma were straining at a rope, trying to break it, but it was just too strong.
The medicine is keeping his body functioning, but it's totally crushing his spirit.
Section 5. Devotion turns to tyranny. As Varma wastes away on this sterile diet, this is where the whole dynamic just totally flips upside down. We start to see Rakesh's actions through a much darker lens. The crazy thing is, Rakesh hasn't actually changed his behavior. He is still super attentive, still managing everything perfectly, but the interpretation has inverted. What the outside world and even Rakesh himself sees as masterly efficiency, Varma is now experiencing as pure tyranny in disguise. Verma gets so desperate that he starts complaining to his elderly neighbor over the garden hedge, saying, "He does not even give me enough to eat. He weighs the food he gives me. That is what it has come to." It highlights this incredibly bitter irony. Think about it. The son he sacrificed everything for, the son he educated to become a great doctor, is using that exact medical greatness to deny his father a single piece of fried fish. And it gets worse. Even resting isn't allowed anymore. Every evening, Rakesh orders the servants to carry Varma's bed outside. They thump it down on the veranda, jarring the poor guy's teeth. His daughter-in-law props him up stiffly with pillows until his back aches, while she listens to a blaring radio. Varma just sits there, terrified of getting hit by his grandson's cricket ball, utterly miserable, but forced to endure it simply because the doctor ordered it. His autonomy is entirely gone.
Section 6. The burden of duty.
And here we are at the tragic climax of the story, where the father and son finally have their explosive confrontation. Rakesh steps out of his car, dressed in pristine white, and goes straight to his father's bed, reaching out to press his feet. Now, remember that anchor motif we talked about at the very beginning? Rakesh touching Varma's feet for his blessing? This time, Varma stubbornly tucks his feet under him, completely out of the way. It is this heartbreaking act of rejection, the very gesture that once defined our incredible bond, is now flat-out refused. In a moment of just sheer agony, Varma's face contorts, and he begs for the one thing Rakesh absolutely refuses to give him. "Let me die. It would be better. I do not want to live only to eat your medicines." He is pleading for agency here, the agency to simply pass away on his own terms, rather than being preserved like some kind of medical specimen. And Rakesh's response? It's honestly chilling. Completely blind to his father's deep spiritual pain, Rakesh just smiles at him lovingly and says, "Papa, you're joking. I've brought you a new tonic to make you feel better. Promise me you will take it." The disconnect is massive. Rakesh offers yet another clinical solution, some thick brown syrup, refusing to let go, refusing to see the actual human being underneath the patient. Well, Varma just absolutely snaps. In a sudden burst of grand, effective defiance, he spits out, "Keep your tonic. I won't take any more of your medicines. None. Never." With a massive sweep of his hand, he knocks the bottle to the floor. It shatters, the brown syrup splashing all over the great doctor's pristine white trousers. In one single violent motion, Varma ends his son's medical tyranny. Pushing the pillows away, Varma sinks flat on his back. Closing his eyes and pointing his chin at the ceiling like some kind of ancient prophet, he utters this final, desperate plea for release. "God is calling me, now let me go." He's not just asking to die anymore. He is begging to be released from the suffocating, unyielding prison of his son's devoted care. So I want to leave you with this final, heavy thought to chew on. Was Rakesh truly a devoted son who just got blinded by his own medical expertise and the expectations of society? Or did his duty actually become a form of torture? When exactly does keeping someone alive, stopping an act of love, and start becoming an act of control? It is a brilliant, highly unsettling question that Anita Desai forces us to confront. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Think about that final question and keep learning.